Hey guys, it's Jack. I wanted to let you know that we're starting a new push for subscriptions here on Human Events Daily. So make sure that when you're listening to this podcast, you hit subscribe, you download it, and you share it with 5 of your friends. Make sure they're all going and downloading as well, because we need to get the signal out as much as possible. Look, we've done so much over the past couple of years since this show started, and we're only going to do so much more. Let's get it. This is what happens when the fourth turning meets fifth generation warfare.
A commentator, international social media sensation, and former Navy intelligence veteran.
This is Human Events with your host, Jack Posobiec.
Christ is king.
Tonight, President Trump told ABC News he will abide by recent court rulings temporarily blocking his $1.8 billion weaponization fund. We are subject to the courts, the president said. At this moment, that's what it is.
95 days into this war and with talks on the brink of collapse. This morning, President Trump declaring negotiations are back on track. Complicating the deal, Israel's incursion into Lebanon, advancing deeper in the region to fight Iranian-backed Hezbollah. Iran threatening to call the talks with the U.S. entirely off. The president initially said he couldn't care less, saying the talks started to get very boring. But hours later, he was on the phone with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. Sources describing the call as tense, with President Trump fuming at Netanyahu over the escalation. At one point asking him, "What the expletive are you doing?"
Oil executives issuing new warnings about what's coming if the strait isn't immediately opened.
We're approaching unheard of inventory levels. I mean, really, really low levels. You can debate whether that's going to hit those really low levels in 2 weeks or 3 weeks. But once you get to that point, then you'll see price shoot up.
This is when masked federal agents with long guns make their way up to the 3rd floor of this Minneapolis complex. And it was all caught on camera. You hear banging before you can make out a name.
Police of the warrant! Kyle Wagner, come to the door!
Minutes later, they take him away in handcuffs. 37-year-old Kyle Wagner, a Minnesota activist, is now charged with threatening to assault and kill ICE agents. That's according to the Justice Department.
I can't breathe. Put the hand in the cuff, mate. Yeah.
This is like numerous times this has happened to us. We've been walking, we parked literally there. Can we get a van? Multiple times we've had people graciously attack us, nothing happens.
He's saying he's been stabbed, so let's just check him.
All right, folks, Jack Posobiec. We're live here, Human Events Daily, Real America's Voice. Today is June 2nd, 2026. Anno Domini. On 3 December 2025, an 18-year-old British university student was murdered in Southampton, UK, by a man named Vikram Digwa. He stabbed Nowak a total of 5 times with a knife. When police officers arrived, Digwa and his family accused the victim, Henry Nowak, of being the one who committed the stabbing. They handcuffed Henry Nowak, even though he repeatedly told them what had happened and that he needed help. His name was Henry Nowak. We're going to play now the body cam that was just released.
I can't breathe. Put the hand in the cuff, mate. Yeah.
This is like numerous times this has happened to us. We've been walking, we parked literally there. Can we get a van? Multiple times we've had people graciously attack us, nothing happens.
He's saying he's been stabbed, so let's just check him.
Where is he stabbed? In the face? Oh no, but we have to check, don't we?
No.
In the face?
Just get these to back off, get their details and that, and I'll keep hold of them. Keep you on your side, mate. You got to retrieve then. Saying to him, I'm keeping him on his side. We were set up when we had him here, but he didn't like it. What's your name, mate? At the moment, you are under arrest. That's for assault, so you do not have to say anything, may harm in defence. If you do not mention when questioned, it's up to which you later rely in court. Anything you do say may be given in evidence, alright? It's going to be sick, I think.
I've been stabbed. I don't think you have, mate. I don't think you have, mate. That was the response. Not just from one police officer, but from an entire world system of government, of media, of bureaucracy that has been dedicated to a single project: hatred of white people. Hatred of white people like Henry Nowak. They lied. The entire family lied when the police showed up. The mother hid the knife. She's been arrested. The father pinned Henry up against the wall. The brother made a fake phone call to law enforcement and lied. They were all in on it. This isn't empathy. This is resentment. This is cruelty. This is hate. And if you think what happened to Henry Nowak, and you could see his hand turning blue due to lack of blood in the handcuffs, understand something. This wasn't an accident. It was unhuman. And unhuman activity is deliberate. Understand that, internalize that, and know that you or your family could be next. Right back, Human Events Daily.
Stand in our way, and our golden age has just begun.
This is Human Events with Jack Posobiec.
Now it's time for everyone to understand what America First truly means.
Welcome to the Second American Revolution.
All right, folks, we're back here, Human Events Daily. And, you know, folks, we're looking at everything that's going on in the world. We're looking at everything that's going on in our day, and of course overseas. You know, we still have the situation: President Trump, Iran, Israel, these treaties, these accords, whether or not they'll come to play. But we know there's turmoil, and as there is turmoil, look, you're going to see more and more shocking events happening around the world and even at home. And I don't believe that we are anywhere close to the end of it. I think, in fact, that we are going to keep getting more and more of this going on. And that's why your family needs to set their financial status and set your family's money and your family's wealth in a good spot. But the way to do that is choosing something that people have used for thousands of years. In fact, thousands upon thousands of years. And that asset is gold. Gold and other precious metals have been used as a stand-in for currency and used as a precious metal barter value since time immemorial. So we know that as our society faces high inflation, mounting debt, rising interest rates, and labor disputes, these factors further strain our economy, with escalating global tensions threatening to disrupt vital supply chains. And there's a reason why so many patriots preserve their wealth with gold. It stands on its own. And you look, the last 5 years, it's almost doubled in value. Now, Allegiance Gold, that's our partner. They've done things the right way from the beginning, so it's no coincidence that they've earned the highest trust ratings in the precious metals industry. 5 stars with TrustLink and A+ in the Better Business Bureau. Allegiance Gold can help protect your IRA or 401k with physical gold and silver, or you can have it delivered securely to your doorstep. Get up to $5,000 in free silver on a qualifying investment when you go to protectwithposo.com or call 844-577-POSO. Don't risk your financial future and your family's financial future betting against these forces. Act today. Go to protectwithposo.com, protectwithposo.com. We need to dig in more on the Henry Nowak situation because there's so many elements at play here. It's not just, again, one individual. It's not just one family. You're looking at systems upon systems collapsing in real time. And in fact, I know a lot of people like to say, oh, it's just empathy. We have too much empathy. We have over empathy. But it's not just that. It's not. Because if you're only talking about empathy, you're talking about one side of the equation. You're talking about the side of like the us. We are the ones who allow for mass migration and transgenderism and all these other isms into our country, right? Over tolerance. But consider the other side, for example. They're not being empathetic. No, these people, they're resentful. They're hateful. They have petty resentment and cruelty. This is unhuman, what has happened here. And we need to get to the bottom of it. I want to bring on Will Chamberlain from the Article 3 Project. And Will, I wanted to talk about some of the rulings in Tyler Robinson, but this has been taken over, I think, the entire world, in terms of the online discourse by storm. This case, Henry Nowak, Vikram Dikwa. What are we missing here? How have we allowed the situation to deteriorate this far?
Well, I think it's actually the real systemic racism, right? If you think about the ways in which the British police operates and what they've been told to, from the top, to push down to their rank and file policemen, it is this sort of outlook that the worst thing anybody can do is be racist to one another, and therefore that accusations of racism need to be treated more seriously than questions of violence or safety of the people on the ground. Like, it's very clear from the beginning that the police officers viewed this kid as like the evil racist they had been trained to recognize, and disregarded him when he said he couldn't breathe, disregarded him when he said he'd been stabbed. I mean, it took the one female police officer to be like, hey, maybe we should check. That's, perhaps we should check to see if he's telling the truth that he's been stabbed or not. It just didn't occur to them that they just immediately assumed the kid was lying as he was lying on the ground, barely moving. A truly remarkably display of poor policing that's a product of the regime, the regime put in place by the British police and around the Western world. And that's a big part of it. The other part that I'll just quickly say is, we're going to talk about Tyler Robinson. Think about the difference between how Tyler Robinson's family responded.
Well, yeah, no. And that's a good segue, by the way. I've noted that as well. And not good, but you know what I mean. That's good in a social sense, I suppose. Bad that any of this is going on, of course. And it reminds me of Jeffrey Dahmer. And Jeffrey Dahmer gave, and I know because you and I have spoken about this before, he gave an interview before he was killed in prison where he talked about his victim selection. And he wanted to talk about the fact, and he's very clear that even though the majority of his victims were themselves black, he wanted to be very clear in this interview that he was not a racist. So he was admitting to murder and dismemberment and a little bit of light cannibalism and a whole number of other things. But he wanted to make sure, very clear, that the world didn't think that he was a no good, dirty, rotten racist. I mean, right. This is kind of what we're talking about. It's like this strange hierarchy whereby stabbing in this case is seen as a lesser offense than did you say a bad word.
Yeah, so not to bring in an interesting analogy, but it's something I've been thinking about lately. There's a big debate about whether or not anti-Zionism is anti-Semitism, and both sides of it are very, very forceful in how they argue it, right? Like the sort of pro-Israel side is no, anti-Zionism is anti-Semitism, and the anti-Israel side is insistent that no, anti-Zionism is distinct from anti-Semitism. And my view is, why does it matter? right? Anti-Zionism seems pretty appalling. Does it improve matters that the butchers of October 7th were doing so not out of hatred for Jews, but out of some post-colonial rage? No, actually, it doesn't matter. And maybe, does it matter that you want to extinguish a society of 10 million people out of what you consider to be more noble motives than racism? No, it doesn't actually matter at all. Like, I think everybody is inhabiting this liberal frame that elevates racism into the ultimate sin when it is not, in fact. And this is just the Nowak killing and what you talk about with Dahmer. There's so many different ways in which this manifests in our society and creates these bizarre and inhuman moments, if you will.
Well, I would, but I would. The only thing that I would change is I would say unhuman
yes.
moments. And that's what you see. Look, I remember, to your point, I remember being on this program, I guess, almost 3 years ago now, in the days after October 7th, and, it was on Telegram, and the footage came across, and it was horrific, just absolute butchery, right? And then you see footage like this coming out of, and what's horrific here is that it's almost passive. It's almost like there's no sense of urgency whatsoever. There's no sense of shock. You see these officers just handcuff him and hold him down. And I don't even think, I've watched the video a few times, and perhaps there's more video. I don't even see them really checking for a pulse. I mean, his sleeve is still up. You can't check for a pulse over the sleeve. You've got to go under the sleeve. You need to be able to actually show some direct concern for the individual. And to your point, the female officer does, but ultimately it's very glib the way they treat him.
Yeah, it's appalling. You think, like, are they going to treat me that way? Or are they going to treat a friend, a child that I know that way?
Exactly.
Right? He's screaming for his life. He's screaming he can't breathe, and that he's been stabbed, and they do nothing. This innocent kid who is just murdered in cold blood. Ugh, it's horrible in any number of ways. And yeah, the conduct of the family is just the worst thing about this. And it's a reminder of what's so special about Western civilization, right? We don't have this nepotistic society where if your family member commits a brutal crime, your society sort of accepts that it's normal that the other family members would come to their defense and help them evade justice. That's not how the West operates. And I think I tweeted yesterday that this is why mass immigration is civilizational suicide, because we aren't all the same. We didn't all grow up with the same culture and the same norms. We don't all have the same attitudes or moral intuitions. And the West has the people who succeed in the West and the people who make the West great have a set of moral intuitions that is in line with Western morals. These people don't.
Yeah, and if you go back and look at the video, it's, Nowak is there, and they were at some pub, and they were out, both had been drinking. It's December, it's getting towards Christmas, finals, and he was making a Snapchat video, at the bar, or, I guess just outside the bar, and was just sort of filming, was just sort of, messing around, and I'm bad, you're bad, ain't it bad, we're all bad, like just going out and doing a Snapchat video, which is a pretty common thing that, people do these days, especially university students. And it's cut off. And right after that, as it's cut off, he begins stabbing him. And the next footage we see is the body cam, which is it's horrific in its indifference. It's horrific in its lack of reaction from the officers who arrive, because they seem indifferent to the suffering of a dying man, dying boy, right in front of them. Jack Posobiec will be right back.
Talk about influencers. These are influencers, and they're friends of mine. Jack Posobiec. Where's Jack? Jack, who's done a great job.
All right, folks, Jack Pacific, we're back live, Human Events Daily. Look, folks, Father's Day is coming up. June 21st is the day. Today is June 2nd, so you got about 19 days to go. What are you planning to get Dad? What are you going to get Dad for Father's Day? Everybody talks about Mother's Day, but fathers, we all know this, we get the short end of the stick. Father's Day just doesn't have the same buzz, the same juice as Mother's Day. This year, we're turning that all around. So it's Daddy's Day. Give your dad the gift of a great night's sleep. Pay him back for all those sleepless nights when you were a kid. And I'm putting my money where my mouth is. I bought one for my mom and my dad. Well, it's one bed, but you know. So Ghost Bed is a family-owned and operated company, 3 generations of doing business in the United States of America. It is American-made, and check it out. You can now get up to 101 nights to try Ghost Bed at home. If you don't feel the difference, you can send it back, risk-free. Right now, Ghost Bed is offering our audience the lowest prices of the season, plus an extra 10% off. Just go to ghostbed.com/POSO and use promo code POSO. Remember again, ghostbed.com/POSO, promo code POSO. Will Chamberlain, I want to ask you, you were starting to mention this, and it's a good segue. The reaction of the parents here, the fact that in one case we have the parents who attempt to lie to police to cover up the murder weapon, who are actively involved in this cover-up, become accessories after the fact. I believe the mother has been arrested. I think she may have been convicted already, but no, she's definitely been arrested and charged. And juxtapose that with the reaction of the family of Tyler Robinson.
Yeah, this is a very unique and Western phenomenon where you can regularly expect the family members of somebody who committed a heinous crime to turn him in and ensure that justice is done. That's not normal in the rest of the world. And it's not normal in the subcontinent, and it's not normal in Africa, and it's not normal in the Middle East, where your family loyalties trump this sort of pro-social conduct. It's a Western phenomenon, and we should be grateful for it and want to preserve it, because it's one of the things that makes our country great is the ability to ensure that justice can be done and that family members believe in the broader project of justice, because the alternative is the world of blood feuds, right? That's the alternative that this avoids, where families kill each other, and family members, take the grievances of the other and go back and forth, and families are just loyal to each other and try and fight the prospect that justice might be done. So,
no, and actually, yeah. I'm getting breaking news on this as we speak. A spokesman for the Southampton, is this Southampton? Or I should say Hampshire and Isle of Wight Constabulary have confirmed that one of the police officers who was involved here, one of the 4, has resigned. We don't know if that was recently. We don't know if it was back in December, but they are confirming that at least one has resigned. As far as the investigation is confirmed, they are all being treated as witnesses, so they are not subject to any current restrictions. So there's perhaps some other proceedings there. I mean, I think clearly, I don't think these people should be police officers, but at the same time, I do think that it's a much larger issue than just going after these 4 people. I mean, I think they should face punishment, but there's a much, much bigger issue. Will, just in the 3 minutes that we have you left, want to switch to talk about the Tyler Robinson case. So we got the huge ruling regarding the cameras in the courtroom. Big win for Human Events. We were the first to come out on that. Erica came out as well, of course, and said that she wanted the cameras there. And we got an interesting ruling, though, on, I don't know how much you saw it, but on the exhibits and whether or not the exhibits will be shown on the live stream of the video. So we're seeing that even down to this level of, will the exhibits be allowed to be shown? So the courtroom will be shown, but now we're fighting if the exhibits are being shown. And so what is your sense of the Robinson defense strategy here? Are they just trying to block everything possible, and if they don't get one level, then they just try again at the next one?
Yeah, they're pulling every lever, or trying to pull every lever they can to hide as much of the proceedings from the general public as possible. They probably want to do this because that evidence is not good for their client. It's really simple. I think I've said this on your show before, but if the Robinson defense was really confident that they had some get out of jail free card piece of evidence for their client, like something that would blow up the prosecution theory of the case, they wouldn't be doing all these delaying and hiding tactics. They'd want to bring it to the public's attention as soon as possible. But they're trying to hide everything they can because they think it's better that we have all these ridiculous conspiratorial narratives going around in public, and they don't want the actual evidence in the case to puncture those narratives.
No, and unfortunately, we got the ruling in Texas that the Carmelo Anthony case is not going to be shown on television at all. So I understand our colleague Savannah Hernandez is down there and is covering it live, but it's just not going to have the same societal impact as a trial that is live streamed. We saw that with, of course, Kyle Rittenhouse. I don't remember him getting any of these benefits. All of those exhibits were completely public. All of the trial was completely public, every single moment of it. I mean, and if you want transparency, like, by the way, Kyle Rittenhouse's team wanted, you'd think you'd call for that.
Yeah, no, that's a really good example of the other side of the coin, where Rittenhouse's team was trying to expand the public coverage of the case because they were confident that the evidence exonerated their client, and they were right, it did. Kyle Rittenhouse didn't commit murder. Those videos made it clear that it was very, very clearly self-defense. That's not the case here. Robinson murdered Charlie Kirk in cold blood. The evidence of that is overwhelming. And, to the extent his defense team is trying to shelter the further evidence developed by the prosecution from the public, we know what the reason for that is.
I'm actually looking up right now the Daniel Penny case. I believe that was you could see the courtroom. I remember there being a lot of courtroom footage. It was very public. People remember there's a lot of public attention on this. I can't find it right now whether it was on or not. But again, huge win for human events, huge win for the public, huge win for transparency. Will Chamberlain, thank you as always for walking us through the legal analysis. And I'm sure there'll be much more to come. Where can people go to follow you in the interim?
At Will Chamberlain on X.
At Will Chamberlain. Give him a follow, folks. Right back with more. Henry Nowak.
Where's Jack? Where's Jack? Where is he? Jack, I want to see you. Great job, Jack. Thank you. What a job you do. We have an incredible thing. We're always talking about the fake news and the bad, but we have guys, and these are the guys who should be getting Pulitzers.
Think of this. The biggest fear a police officer now has going about his or her duty on the street is the fear of being reported for having acted in a way that was racially biased. That fear, now greater than dealing with a dying man living on the ground. Henry's family have responded to this in just the most extraordinarily dignified way. But I suggest the rest of us respond to this with pure, cold rage. This is wrong. All the values and standards of living in a free country where everybody is judged equally before the law have been trashed and thrown away.
Well, that was Nigel Farage coming out, some of the most high-profile remarks given in the UK on the murder of Henry Nowak, this shocking footage that just came out. I want to bring on, of course, good friend and editor-in-chief of the National Pulse, also former advisor to Nigel Farage, Raheem Kassam, joins us now. Raheem.
Hi, Jack. Thanks for having me.
So I'm seeing these videos. I also saw that Keir Starmer came out and, kind of made a sort of roundabout acknowledgement of this. Is this setting fire to the UK, at least the commentariat sphere, as much as it is in the US?
Oh, massively. Jack, this is
good.
Biggest story in the United Kingdom right now, full stop. As we speak, there is a live march taking place outside the police station in Southampton. The developments are, now coming thick and fast because the public pressure is so high, because the commentariat are now talking about it. But, frankly, as we know from years of having dealt with something like this, and these incidents happening over and over, Henry Nowak is by no means the first person that this has happened to. They would like to not be talking about it. And what Nigel Farage said in that clip that you just played, that cold rage is being felt up and down the country right now. A lot of the left media are saying that means, Nigel Farage is calling for violence. That's not what he's calling for. What he's calling is for righteous indignation. Not only should Henry still be alive today, but the circumstances surrounding his death, the way the police handled what was going on, the flippancy, the laughter, the joking around as he laid there bleeding out. And you look at how the other political parties are responding to this in the United Kingdom at the moment. Kemi Badenoch, who is the leader of the Conservative Party, technically His Majesty's loyal opposition, came out today and said, I don't want to hear about Black Lives Matter and I don't want to hear about White Lives Matter. But when George Floyd died, Jack, Kemi was one of the first pumping her fist up in the air and saying Black Lives Matter. The bizarreness of it all is, they now try and tell us Henry Nowak's death is not political and it shouldn't be made political. Henry Nowak's death was necessarily political. The cultural proposition that is being made in the United Kingdom right now is necessarily political. The way in which the police responded to him because of the false racism charge leveled at him, the DEI cops were being necessarily political in the way that they dealt with this. So I don't want to hear anything about that. This is a political event. It is a political death, and it will be dealt with in the hard arena of politics.
It was clearly political. There's no question. And look, I don't know the medical status on Henry and whether or not early intervention could have saved him, but I do know that it might have. Right? And he didn't get that. What he got was derision, mockery. And Raheem, this is my point, though. And talk to me a little bit, though, about how big it is that you have someone on the level of Nigel Farage who's taking this issue of the treatment of white people specifically and bringing it up to a national stage in a way that he has in the UK, where you've seen a few politicians do this in the US. Obviously, President Trump has been first and foremost on this, but you don't really see this in the UK as of yet.
Yeah. I'm not usually like this, as you know, but when I think about this, when I think about the detail of this case, I've got some of the bullet points up in front of me just so that you can remember, I want people to hear, exactly what happened in Henry's last moments. I am actually shaking, ragefully shaking, thinking about this stuff. The number of times he was stabbed, the fact that this Sikh guy's mother took the weapon and hid it from the police, effectively an accomplice. By the way, I think the police were accomplices in this death also. The fact that this happened last year, and the details of this are just now coming to light. All of these things are building up in people's minds. It's not just one thing, right? It's not just the fact that there was this heinous, brutal, disgusting stabbing that took place. It's every little detail seems to make it worse. And we're not even at the end of this whole thing yet, by the way, Jack. There are further charges coming. There will be further developments for, I think, the murderer himself, by the way, who was sentenced to life. But we know what that means in the British system. It means maybe this guy will be back out on the streets in 12 years with good behavior, maybe less. And so Nigel Farage today not just has obviously given that extremely moving speech, the whole thing, by the way, not just the clip. I was on social media, and people should look at it and internalize it, but also has appealed as high as you can go in the country, justice-wise, to look at if we can actually make life mean life for this murderer, because it's no use. I mean, do you remember, Jack, when the British soldier Lee Rigby was beheaded on the streets of London, all those years ago? And we were told at the time what a heinous thing this was and how it could never happen again to anybody. And what has happened since then? Knife crimes, machete attacks, stabbings, exponentially rising across the United Kingdom. And this case in particular, I think, a lot of people in this country ask me, when will the British lion start to roar again? Today.
The video has been horrific, and as awful as it was, I can only hope that in seeing this, and that's why when I went, we were putting the show together today, I said, I want to show the video, and I want you to see his cold hand. You could see the life that has come out of his hand. And you can go and his family's up now on their social media, Facebook pages and others, showing pictures of him playing soccer as a young boy. Someone who, by the way, with not that it matters, but with a team that clearly is quite diverse, by the way, doesn't seem to have any problem with that. He seems to be quite friendly with everybody. He seems to be someone who had a very bright life ahead of him. And here he's out drinking at a pub and filming a Snapchat video and is murdered for this. And it's to me and almost a symbol of what's happening across the West, that our governments, these regimes, this globalist empire, whatever it is, whatever term we want to use for it, is this. They're the ones handcuffing you while you're bleeding out and telling you to be quiet, to stop complaining, to stop being upset that you've been stabbed in the face, that you've been stabbed in the chest, and telling you to just sit there and take it as you bleed out. And perhaps if you could do so a little bit quietly, because you're disturbing the new residents of your town. You're disturbing the migrant family that's moving in to your village. They don't want to hear your wailing. You're disturbing the peace. You're disturbing the neighborhood. Well, you know something, folks? I think I'm with Nigel Farage on this one. I think it's time to do a little disturbing of the peace in the name of standing up for the right to exist of white people. Right back, Jack Posobiec, Human Events Daily, Real America's Voice.
The Jack Posobiec Appreciation Hour. I can say confidently, I think Josh Shapiro would be the vice presidential nominee if it wasn't for Jack Posobiec. And that is, I'm being honest.
With his final words, he told officers that he could not breathe. He told them he had been stabbed. In fact, Henry told officers that he could not breathe 9 times. He told them he had been stabbed 4 times. The response from one officer was, "I don't think you have, mate." The police have said they were misled by the murderer and that the scene when they arrived was complex. Unfortunately, it seems to us the truth is much simpler. The police were told by our son himself and by a member of the public who called 999 that they heard someone shout that they had been stabbed. But the police did not believe them. Henry was pulled across the gravel, his hands forced behind his back.
That's the father of Henry Nowak, flanked by his sister and mother. They're speaking out on the heinous actions of the police, as well as the heinous actions of the murderer there. And I want to go now, as Raheem just told us, there is a march going on right now. These are moments ago in Southampton, UK, and let's play some of this footage that's coming out. Stunning marches. The British people are rising up. Raheem and guys, let's leave that up as B-roll. Raheem, walk us through these scenes, these images. It looks like a very working class crowd. It looks like a crowd of the type of people who live in hard scrabble areas, but you know what? The backbone of the country.
Yeah, Jack. I mean, as you say, this is going on virtually in real time. Those videos that you're showing now probably were only taken about 10 or 20 minutes ago, if that. And so, not being on the ground, very hard to tell you, exactly the makeup. But obviously, given that it has sort of been quite a spontaneous outpouring of support for Henry, his family, and really for the community there. You can see the numbers, the scale of this thing, and this is just sort of the first day of it, quite frankly. You hear a lot of words there that will sound familiar to people. I can't breathe, no justice, no peace. The shoe is now on the other foot. And, after George Floyd, by the way, I really need to make this point. After George Floyd, which happened in America, if people need reminding, the entire British political establishment got down on one knee. I'm not talking about, theoretically or rhetorically. I mean, physically, literally. Look up the pictures of now Prime Minister Keir Starmer on one knee in his office with his fist raised for George Floyd. The English Football League, the Premier League, the soccer, the big soccer, right? Forced every team to take the knee before every match for years. Now the shoe's on the other foot. Let's look very carefully at what these people do. Will there be white squares on Instagram? Will there be knee taking at football matches? Will the Prime Minister get down on one knee? Will they say his name over and over again? Henry Nowak, Henry Nowak. And those people out on the street, you're absolutely right, by the way. I mean, you look at where this attack happened, a historic town, an ancient town in England, by the way. Those people will have lived there their whole lives, will have, ancient roots, deep roots to that community, to that town. This is in the broader city of Southampton, but it's a small town as part of Southampton. The population is small, 15,000 in Portswood, and you're going to see, I think, more than 15,000 people descending on that town in the coming days, because I don't want to speak for them, and I think Nigel was right when he said that Henry's family have reacted with astonishing dignity amongst all of this. But ordinary people are not going to comport themselves in quite the same way, and frankly, I don't think they should have to.
No, I don't think they should either. Tanya, my wife, Tanya, she just sends a message in and says this story is heartbreaking. And to anyone who has children, who has loved ones, you look at something like this, if you're a parent, it's your worst nightmare. And it's actually beyond your worst nightmare that what you want, your children could be murdered, but that there's a trust when you call 911 in the US or 999 in the UK that someone will come to help, that the person that's coming is going to be there on your side, that's going to fix things. Raheem, this is the social contract that we are talking about. And it's that severing of the social contract between the government and between the people in such a horrific and terrifying way and unhuman way that sparked this response, isn't it?
Yeah, and like I say, Henry's not the first, but this will certainly be, I think, the loudest reaction. The fact that it's taken this long for the body cam footage to be shown, that people learned the details of the case when it was going on in court, and learned just how disgusting and duplicitous these people were. Not just the murderer, his defense, his family, along the whole way, no level of contrition, just lies on lies on lies. And somebody wrote something, I think it was on my Facebook page earlier today. They said, I don't understand how they thought they were going to get away with this. The mother hiding the dagger, as if, the police would, or maybe Henry would have survived, but then, the truth would have come out. Or as if, when he died, they weren't going to go back and check what exactly happened. I mean, none of it makes any sense. It's pure derision and hatred and malice for not just the British state, but the British public, for ordinary British people, for the neighborhood, the community that they lived in. It beggars belief that people could behave like this, not just to raise your son like that, but then to aid and abet him after he'd committed a murder. And that the defense would make the claims that Henry was somehow agitating this situation. It's sick. It's sick. It's not just a breaching of the social contract. It's sick. These are sick people. There's no need to excuse their agency. They are 100% compass mentors of what they're doing. And I think, unfortunately, you're going to see a whole summer worth of this pouring out onto British streets.
I think you will. And although I might be a Yank, I may have, if I may, I'd like to throw out Rise, Britannia, Rise. Rise, Britannia, Rise. Raheem Kassam, give him a follow, folks. Incredible, moving words today. Thank you for your contribution here at Human Events Daily. Ladies and gentlemen, as always, you have my permission to lay ashore.